But the only so this is the modern struggle. The modern struggle is the lone individual. The lone individual has to stand up to the weaponization of struggle sessions via social media, has to stand up to the weaponization of food through processing and junk food, the
Yeah.
weaponization of the libido, into or the sex drive with unlimited pornography, the weaponization of alcohol, drugs. How many Americans do you think are on mind-altering substances of some kind or another?
Right
Nearly
now.
everybody, right?
Right now, yeah.
Well, I just mean in general, like
Oh
prescription
yeah,
drugs. They're taking SSRIs, they're taking Xanax, or they're living in an area where cannabis is legal and they're smoking cannabis and saying, "Oh yeah, this is great, everything is fine," right?
yeah.
But there are more drugs being taken right now to calm to calm the mind, than are being taken to calm the body, right? So we're just under constant assault, and I'm not saying it's some evil conspiracy theory thing. It's a natural outcome of abundance, ironically, right? We've just taken all the things that used to be scarce in society, and thanks to the miracle of free markets and capitalism and science and technology, we've just created massive abundance.
It's the shadow
But
side of abundance, exactly. But the
exactly, yeah,
solution to it isn't what did they, when they, what's the word? What did they do with booze in the 20s? What's that? What's the word for that?
prohibition.
There you go. Prohibition. Prohibition is never the answer, obviously.
Yes, prohibition is censorship, right? It's just
Yeah,
physical
exactly. There you
censorship,
go.
so with the same
So,
problems. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I had a tweet that I put out where I said the modern devil is cheap dopamine, right? And that was again linking a bunch of words together normally don't see together, and trying to use words that everybody knows but doesn't normally use. Like most people won't use the word dopamine in a speech in conversation. So that was a good tweet. I like that one, and that was one of the that was one of the times where I got a good response on Twitter. I actually got some really useful feedback, and
Really?
there was a lot of like crazy feedback. But one person wrote in and said, "Actually, the devil has always been cheap dopamine." And I was like, I think you're right. Like you go back to all the biblical edicts
Yeah.
about, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. It's like, don't go get that cheap dopamine and then get someone pregnant and create a battle and
Yeah.
or spread diseases. So that whoever responded was correct. The devil has always been cheap dopamine. But what's interesting is the cost of the dopamine has collapsed by orders and orders of magnitude, right? So someone needs to sketch this out, but there's probably a graph that you could draw where you have, time on the x-axis and you have the price per unit of dopamine, however it's measured on the y-axis. And this is, you have to be a little clever about how to define it, but you'd probably find that it looks like,
you
the price
don't
of a
have to
transistor.
leave bed anymore. The thing that, you maybe back in the day, you'd have to get up, you'd go to the Coliseum, you'd go watch someone get hit with a rock, whatever it was, like throw yourself down a hill to make yourself feel dizzy or something. You literally don't have to get out of bed. You can open your eyes, pick up your little portal device thing, and
Exactly.
boom, you're there. In so many of them, in like most.
Yeah.
Of
So
them.
there's the philosophical question of the bliss machine, which is if you can put an electrode in your head and stimulate it, and it's all just neurons and chemicals, and you can stimulate neurotransmitters so that you can just live in infinite bliss. You will just feel never-ending bliss. Would you do it? And most people will say no. There's some people who say yes, and those are unfortunately the heroin addicts in our society, right? The people on the street who are homeless, really more of we call it homeless and mental illness, but it's really more of a drug abuse problem, right?
Definitely.
And so there's just a lot of people doing heroin, and they're living inside the bliss machine. And so most people will say, no, I'm not going to do that. I want meaning in my life. It's okay. Well, I'll put an electrode that gives you meaning. Now you have bliss and meaning. It's like, oh, no. That's not what I meant. I need variety. Okay, here you go. Bliss, meaning, and the feeling of variety. There you go. How do you feel now? Right? So you can take this to reductio ad absurdum, but maybe that's what we're in now, right? The great simulation, the great programmer / God. We just created ourselves a bliss, meaning, and variety machine to entertain ourselves. So you kind of end up back at square one. But it's just fun to reason through the whole thing.
What would you do if you were God? You end up back at the simulation. You end up back at
exactly.
What's his face in the Matrix saying, "I know the steak isn't real, but it's delicious."
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that he was a rational one. Because Neo is irrational in the Matrix on two levels. One is that he willingly goes into a worse society. He's living in Zion in rags, instead of in.
He didn't really get a choice. He didn't. I don't think he.
Yeah, he didn't get a choice. Fair enough. Fair enough. And it was rational because he was. Yeah, but another way was rational because he was truth seeking, right? So he was like, okay, I'd rather live in the rags and eat gruel in truth than eat a steak and drink wine of lies, right? Which, by the way, is not the choice most people would make.
Oh, but hey, but guess
But
what
this,
he had? The thing that he had, and this is the thing that I on and off quit drinking and substances and things over the years with varying degrees of success. I finally did it a couple of years ago because I made an album in which I sampled Jordan Peterson and Theo Von talking about booze, and Peterson's like, it's not prohibition. You need a replacement for the reason you're doing it. You need an adventure. And what Neo had was an adventure. And when she put that adventure into your life, whatever it is, that will replace those other things.
that is a very good point. The adventure replaces the comfort. So in that sense, he sort of chose meaning for his life as opposed to just creature comforts. Very good point. Yeah, and I think the second part where I think Neo went off the rails is that he just assumed that Zion is a real world. Once you've been shown that you're inside of a simulation, how do you know where it stops? It's simulations all the way down. It's actually the existential end of your life, because now you're never going to be satisfied. In fact, the only way you could be convinced you're not in a simulation is if you're in something that doesn't render anything, like a plain white room or a plain black room forever, aka death. So I think if you were shown to be in a simulation, if someone came up to you and proved to you that you were in a simulation, then the philosophical endpoint of that is mental death.
Or it depends if you accept it. If you go, okay, what's the argument? I think I heard Elon say something along the lines of that he quite liked simulation theory as an idea because it means it could be hacked. I don't know if he actually said that or if I.
Well, the problem is that these people are agnostics. No one's a true believer, right? If he truly, truly, truly 100% believed he was in a simulation, then I think he would behave very differently. Or the same way, if you truly, truly, it's like, look, we all live our lives as agnostics, right? If you truly believed you were mortal, then you would know that your life is going to end and this is all going to zero, and you would live very freely and very happily. At the same time, if you truly believed you were immortal in whatever sense, you had an immortal soul, or you had some kind of a non-dualistic interpretation where it's like all awareness, then you would also live freely and at peace, because you would realize that you're immortal, so none of this should bother you. But everybody's an agnostic. Everybody actually doesn't know.
Yeah, it's true. Apart from those, and that's I think a good definition of those few people we hear about across history who do remarkable things. It's people who've let go of that.
The Buddhas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The Buddhas and the Jesuses and the whatever it is
right.
Those people.
All right. Well, I think that's probably a good spot to end it, unless you got anything else you want to chat about.
There's